Fallout the Frontier has been one of the most anticipated and biggest mods in our modding community. Since its release, it instead became one of the most controversial ones. I didn't expect this to happen, and it is sad to see, because while there is a lot of weird stuff in it, there is also a ton of genuinely good content, created by a group of dedicated modders that didn't deserve any of this. That's why I decided to actually play through all that Frontier has to offer and form my own opinion about it. I played through NCR, Crusaders and Legion campaigns and took my time exploring Portland Wasteland. In total, I spent more than 50 hours in it. With that said, review will be split into multiple segments, starting off with a non-spoiler review of its world, weapons, armors and mechanics, then moving on to side content and 3 main campaigns, where I will be talking about story spoilers as well. And at the end, I will also talk about all the controversies. When it comes to any additional mods, I only use those required by mod itself, along with Vanilla UI Plus for that crispy clean HUD, and Jam, just mods assorted for sprint, visual markers and occasional bullet time. I tried to keep my game as vanilla as possible, so that any bugs or crashes that would happen could only be contributed to Frontier itself. After around 15 hours, I encountered a nasty visual bug, where my screen had this brownish tint on it that looked worse than the combination of New Vegas's and Fallout 3's horrible filters. Since I couldn't get rid of it and there was no way in hell I would start over again, I had to use Rudy EMB. So I'm sorry for any visual whiplash you might get, but I will try to keep it to minimum. I also played the uncensored version with all the content intact. And now, without any further delays, let's begin. Frontier takes place in Portland, where NCR exiles fight with Northern Legion over territory and technologies. It takes place during vanilla DLCs before the Battle of Hoover Dam, and your career should already be well known in Mojave before you go here. You can begin by talking to Lieutenant Gray, who takes you to Camp Phoenix, main base for NCR. From there, you can either continue with NCR questline, abandon them for Crusaders, or betray them for Legion. Personally, I would advise you to start the chapter 1 of NCR questline, and if you don't like it, then don't continue and instead seek out Crusaders, or ignore them as well and just explore the wasteland, because Portland is definitely mod's best part. First thing everyone will notice is snow. Looks like NCR troopers finally got their wish. Outside of giving Wasteland a unique look, it also takes part in weather. You can encounter storms that hinder vision and allow enemies to attack you more easily, especially when it comes to native animals and tribes, like Snowblind or Yeshu. Plus, it also has this nice crunching sound. One gameplay mechanic that was unfortunately cut out was chill factor, where freezing weather mattered and you could die if you were not properly dressed, but it was cut due to time constraints. But snow is not the only visually pleasing thing here. Portland is filled to brim with unique locations. Main faction bases, Ostia, Rapco Tower and Camp Phoenix are all stunning, and exploring them is a lot of fun. Some of my favorites also include Junk Flea, main scavenger settlement with huge underground market and slums. Karos Enterprises, a seemingly innocent place that has a huge secret under it. Hunter's Lodge, that is one of the best looking houses I ever saw in New Vegas. Vault 6, with its experiments and pre-war technologies. There is even a metro network under Portland that can serve as an alternative to surface travel. And there are tons of smaller, cool looking locations to visit, like bars, forest, satellite stations and so much more. Honestly, Frontier's world is on par with Mojave, and some people might even prefer it, since it is filled with things to find without any empty space. One thing I really liked is how Portland has a lot of its own lore. There are mentions of characters and places you might meet or find in the future, and there are a lot of connections you wouldn't expect or think of. For example, I saw a lot of notes talking about this slaver called Sundown, who seems to be leading this huge slaving operation. You find information about him everywhere you go, mainly in Legion or scavengers camps. Eventually you find him in a resort, where he is surrounded by slaves, guards, and you can once again find tons of notes and terminals documenting his actions. And best thing about all this is that he is not even a part of any huge quest. He is just one of the NPCs living here, and his quest only starts once you reach the resort. Authors took their time building a character, his connections, background, story and lore, and players might not even find him if they don't try. Another example is one of your companions, Donovan, who has a history of being a mercenary and doing some bad stuff. You would think that it would come back to haunt him during his companion quest, but no. Instead it comes up in a totally unrelated side quest that you might never do, or you might take it before you even meet Donovan and know nothing about him. People like Sundown or Donovan make you feel like you're exploring a living world, not just one that is background prop for a main quest line. And there are tons of stories or locations like the ones I mentioned. I explored maybe 3/4 of the map and it took me around 25 hours. And I am not the type of person who reads every note or explores every little room, so it will probably take you a lot longer. Alright, so what about weapons and armors? Well, there is a lot of them here. A lot. Some of them are just retextures where instead of brown they used white paint, but most of them are pretty good. I especially liked some of the energy weapons, they had interesting design and visual effects. But I also had some problems, mainly with sound. Some of the weapons were clearly way too loud and it was pain to shoot them. I didn't know that Frontier tried to be realistic with that. You can also meet some new creatures. For example, Yeshu, who are basically huge angry bears, or bullthorns, who are basically huge angry rhinos. There are also a lot of spiders here, and I was never afraid of them in games before, but here I was seriously considering getting that arachnophobia patch. I also didn't enjoy lizards on Drax, you didn't have to add those, but more on them later. Outside of 3 main factions you can also meet and find smaller ones like Snowblind or Portland Militia, who are not excited by your visit. Don't worry though, you won't be alone. There are 9 companions, 2 robots, 1 spider and 6 humans, some exclusive to certain factions. They all have a companion quest, personality and specialty. Now let's take a look at new mechanics. I will leave the scripting madness for NCR part, but one thing I want to talk about here are cars. They were one of the most anticipated and promoted features of Frontier and they didn't disappoint. I don't know how Xylander did it, but this is some black magic. Cars are responsive, easy to control, and I feel like I'm driving a heavy car on the road instead of feeling like I'm controlling a glider on ice. Unfortunately, Portland was not built for them, and there are very few roads where you can enjoy their full potential. Main dish of any Fallout game are its quests. I know that a lot of people are disappointed with Frontier's writing, but that mainly applies to some of its main storylines. When it comes to side quests, it is okay. You have a lot of interesting dialogue and characters, unique and multiple solutions to some of the quests, and great set pieces to accompany them. What I really liked is that there is a lot of additional dialogue, where you can learn more about your objective, quest giver or lore behind it. A lot of Fallout quest mods fall short on this, and they only allow one option in dialogue, which is to be expected when you're doing a quest mod alone, but I'm glad that Frontier team took their time and gave me ability to have meaningful conversations, just like you could in vanilla New Vegas. This also applies to dialogue outside of quests. Some minor characters can tell you about Portland, their story and a lot more, without being included in any quests. Voice acting is a hit or miss. Most of main characters are good, but it is clear that some side characters didn't try that much. But you have to bear in mind that this is still just a Fallout mod, so bad voice acting is acceptable. Mod even comes with its own 3 radios, with hosts, soundtrack and new songs made just for it. On technical side of things, I don't think any side quests broke. I only had problems with main quests, and I only had like 8 crashes during whole playtime. So that's very good and surprising, considering how big this mod is. Now you might be thinking, wow, this review is a lot more positive than I thought it would be. That's because unfortunately only thing that people talk about are few controversial decisions and team members, that I of course don't agree with as well, and its horrible NCR questline. But there is a lot of good stuff in Frontier, and I wanted to start with that before we push into darker territories. I know that a lot of people hated the modding team for all that happened, and there is nothing that could persuade them to change their minds, and I understand that. But you also need to understand that a lot of modders that worked on Frontier weren't part of core team and had no way of knowing what would happen or who was working with them. I don't think their hard work should be dismissed just because one guy was a total scumbag and few others did some questionable decisions. I don't know, I just don't want this insane amount of good content to disappear. So here are my recommendations for anyone that wants to try out Frontier. If you want to see some state-of-the-art scripting and don't mind bad writing, try out NCR. If you want the classic Fallout experience, go with Crusaders as soon as you can and explore Portland. And if you want a good main quest line that combines interesting choices, well-written dialogue and few combat encounters, go with Legion. Alright, so now let's take a look at what everyone has been waiting for. NCR's main quest line. There will be story spoilers, but I don't think anyone is gonna play this one for its story. It is recommended to play Frontier with a new character, but I wasn't about to play through half of New Vegas to level him up, and thankfully mod gives you a quick start option, where you can do that instantly. Even though it says that Frontier requires level 11, I would go for level 16 at least, or 20 if you don't like challenge. Then you can also choose if you want the Legion reputation that is required to play as them, and if you're only planning to play Frontier with this new character, I recommend it. It doesn't change much, only gives you an option to join Legion when the time comes. Anyway, after my character was set up, I was visited by Private Johnson, who told me that exiles are looking for me. After talking to Lieutenant Gray, he sent me on a truck, where I could choose game mode, a soldier or mercenary. I would recommend soldier, because taking all your gear into Frontier will make it trivial and make any exploration meaningless. Right off the bat, Gray asked me if I wanted to hear the tragedy of General Blackthorn, and that starts the first flashback scripted sequence. NCR questline is filled with these, so get used to it. In this one, Gray is telling me about the battle for Helios 1, and I get to meet his squad before it starts.
Hey, right? Can you do me a favor?
What is it?
If something happens to me, could you send this ring to my girl? The address is on my will here. I don't trust any of these idiots to do it.
You're going to see her again. Don't worry.
Yeah, but just give me your word, right?
If it will ease your mind, pal, you got it. But after this battle, you owe me a beer.
Fair enough.
Alright, so I thought this was such an obvious death flag that there was no way it would come true. After cutscene I was thrown into battle with explosions everywhere, and I was also immortal? Well, I guess you can't have Great die in his own flashback, huh? After a short skirmish, Blackthorn asked me to kill any wounded soldiers, because apparently NCR can't afford to nurse 4 more guys. And of course, one of them was Nomad. If you thought this was bad writing, well, oh boy, you haven't seen anything yet. We are then shown Blackthorn's rebellion through some more cutscenes. This one was pretty cool. I actually prefer it over just being told everything in dialogue. It gives it that cinematic feeling. Generally, I'm not against cutscenes, but they should only be used when they enhance players' experience like here. So flashback ends and we arrive in Frontier. My first task was to meet with Hotshot and Hardcase and try out their shooting range. If you're getting Call of Duty flashbacks, don't worry, there will be more. With that over, it was time to get my first real mission. I was tasked to go with Henderson and his squad to plant bombs at the bridge. Here is where you also meet Esther, a prostitute hired by Crusaders, who are a religious group by the way, to get you started with them if you want. Well, I wasn't about to betray my brothers in arms for some action, so I politely refused their advances. So we traveled through city, kill some scavs and meet a tank. My quest was to stay behind it and protect it. A pretty cool segment. There are multiple ways scavs attack you, and you always need to keep an eye out for tank's health or else it is game over. But it is a bit too long for my taste. Anyway, we arrive at bridge and surprise, surprise, Legion is waiting for us. So I get kidnapped in a cutscene that is, let's say, inspired by a franchise that will make more money in a year than all Fallout games made so far. Here I meet Legate Valerius. And if you have Legion reputation, this is where you can join them. But like I said, I'm gonna stay with my NCR bros for now. So I get tortured and crucified. Is it game over? Well, no, because Blackthorn decides to send his whole army to save me. And here is where I just stopped and got very confused by writing. Why the hell would Blackthorn send a whole army to send one courier who barely came into Frontier, got captured on his first mission and hasn't even proven his loyalty or even met Blackthorn at all? Even if you are the greatest legend of Mojave, there is no way any sane commander would send such a huge force just to save one guy. Hotshot even addresses that in a cutscene, but he gets shot down without any explanation. Look, this is a cool concept. I like the idea of playing as someone else in order to save your original character, but you don't have to sacrifice plot for that. Why not make couriers succeed in few missions? Maybe repel a huge attack on base, that by the way happens in chapter 2, or do a few basic missions, or at least let him meet the general that sends his whole freaking army to save him. This rescue could have been done in chapter 2, instead of shoehorning it right at the beginning. Anyway, I played as Hardcase, who had a whole lot of one conversation with me. Mission starts with some cool visuals, and then I go down into stadium and get few optional objectives and gadgets. Instead of being invincible, Hardcase has star player's mutation, so he can regenerate his health, he can call on napalm or airstrike, and control his unit with binoculars. All good features that are however used in a mission that doesn't make any sense story-wise. So I make my way through the city and find myself. My character's name perfectly encapsulates my thoughts so far. Now I had to escort myself back to a rendezvous point, and here comes the first boss battle, a tank. Again, pretty cool, but it takes way too much to destroy it. And soon as we get out of there, Wolfpack, which is the name of unit that saved Courier, gets shut down. Hotshot and Hardcase, aka me, try to defend our fallen comrade AJ from waves of Legion. Eventually a cutscene plays, Hotshot gets mauled, and I'm starting to think his body is made of adamantium, because he can sure take a lot of punishment. Now as last man standing, I kill Legionnaires as they come out of snow, until Legate comes, gives me a speech, and kills Hardcase. Now this was a good scene, again inspired by other franchises, but done in a way that made me feel sorry for Hardcase and his team. This is where chapter 1 ends. Before we move on to chapter 2, let's talk about scripting. As far as I know, whole NCR campaign was scripted and written by one guy, Devil's Wish. He's behind some old but gold Fallout mods like House of Horrors or Endless Warfare. Now I don't know how he did it, but the things he did in this janky engine are incredible. Cutscenes, mechanics, vehicles, everything feels almost unreal. Unfortunately, his writing is definitely not as good. It is a shame that so many amazing features will be forgotten, just because they were used in such a weak storyline. Let's move on to chapter 2. It begins with me meeting the myth, the man, the legend, General Blackthorn. Nice of you to finally show up. He tells me to go and recover bodies of Wolfpack that are now displayed right next to one of the biggest bars, Wasted Angel. Legion sure knows how to make a good propaganda. I can also talk to Tiberius Rancor, General's right hand, who is voiced by Ray Chase, guy who did Noctis in Final Fantasy XV. Anyway, I grab their bodies, return them, and my reward is this lengthy funeral sequence. This is not edited. Next up I have to follow General to a hangar for like 15 minutes, while he monologues about his objectives in Frontier and his past, which I already knew thanks to Grey, but I guess some players might skip the flashback, so that's why he repeats it here. A fucking Avengers helicarrier. Seriously. I mean, I don't care about lore at all, but this is a bit too much even for me. And of course we have a child genius with army of robots working on it. I'm just gonna pull out my checklist of tropes and tick another box. Also, Blackthorn thinks there might be a Legion spy among his troops. I wonder who could that be? Maybe someone called Tiberius, wearing sunglasses and voice acted by the most famous voice actor here? Nah. I honestly thought that Rancor being a spy was way too obvious, that he was red herring for sure, but the Nomad scene from beginning should have taught me that here we don't do good writing. Suddenly Tuner comes down and says that we're about to be attacked by scavs, so it is time for tank section. I'm glad that authors first gave me a chance to get used to controls by making me shoot these vehicles, because this is nowhere near as smooth or accurate as cars. I mean, once again, it is a cool section, but it goes on for like 30 minutes. And I think most of you are starting to see a pattern here. While all these sections must have been hell to code and create and are cool to look at, they go on for too long. It is fun to shoot tanks for 5 minutes, but after that it becomes boring, and there is a lot of useless padding even in later parts. There is also another reason why all these scripted sections fail. They are missing the spectacle that accompanies segments like these in other games. I personally don't like turret and tank sequences in Call of Duty either, but they at least have superior visual presentation, style, explosions and stakes in them. That is just not possible here. Creation engine is a mess that is barely holding itself together, and it is a miracle that it didn't explode as soon as someone tried to code anything like this in it. The game itself is also ugly, has horrible FPS mechanics, and just isn't built for scripted sequences like this one. And the original authors knew that, and focused more on its strengths, like good writing, characters, mission design and open world. NCR Campaign is the exact opposite of that. It doesn't use any of Fallout's strengths, and only highlights its weaknesses. It feels like one big mother's flex, where author only wanted to show that he can do all of this, and didn't stop and think if any of it was fun. Anyway, back to tank battle.
It's time we finish this!
Or maybe not. This dead ray you just saw was produced by Enclave. My mission now is to find out what their purpose is in Frontier. In this next mission I get officially introduced to Xylandro's cars that I talked about before. It then continues into a stealth mission. After putting out force fields surrounding the camp and killing all Enclave soldiers, you meet the main Enclave villain, Vaz. He's the worst character in the NCR questline, but one of more interesting ones in Legion 1. More on that later. So he kicks me out of his jet, I go back to Blackthorn, we find out that Enclave has a space station, and he sends me to find 2 power cores for vertibirds that will take me to it. You heard that right, we're going to space. I then go and investigate Junk Fleet with Rancor, who then leaves me on my own and goes back to, I don't know, cleaning his sunglasses or planning world domination. This is the first time where game lets you roam free. I have 2 map markers and it is up to me to decide which objective to follow. One power core is with Church of Eternal Life and other one is in Hunter's Lodge. Let's start with Church. These guys are batshit insane. They worship undetonated nuclear warhead and drink and bathe in radioactive water. I love it. My quest here is to get into their cult and get to the power core. So I talk to one of the priests who tells me that I need to meet their high priest first. It turns out that he is a feral glowing one who will definitely not tell me if I can join. So I lied, bathed in the radioactive water, then I was sent to meet Ghoul Jesus. Turns out Ghoul Jesus is a random ghoul making money off these stupid fools by pretending to be their savior. Some might not like it, but I loved this quest. It is the exact type of humor I expect from Fallout. It makes fun of stupid cults with its own Fallout spin on it. After this I got the core and moved on to Hunter's Lodge. It is a beautiful mansion with a bunch of hunters. Mr. Alexander Warren asked me to join them on their next hunt. So I kill a few animals and then we get to hunt a human. I'm starting to feel something isn't right here. Unsurprisingly, my food gets spiked during dinner. Now I'm the one who gets hunted. I don't have any of my equipment, but there are multiple weapons, stim packs and traps around the hunting grounds that I can use to my advantage. Now this is a very cool mission, something I never experienced in Fallout before, and I had a lot of fun being the one who gets hunted by foes with superior weapons, hiding and planning my attacks. After I killed them all, Hunter's Lodge was mine, and I could use it as home, and also get the power core. I went back to Blackthorn and he introduced me to this huge team of characters that would accompany me, and I was already having fun just trying to guess which of them were going to die. Chapter 3 begins and we're in space now. I really like this segment and it is probably my favorite part of NCR questline. It serves as a welcomed change of pace, with you and your crew isolated on this space station doing something that has nothing to do with anything you did so far. Space station also looks great. There are tons of custom assets used to create it, including things like doors, hallways, tons of new weapons and armors. Plus, it has a lot of interesting mechanics. There are some good and bad sections here, so let's go through them. At the beginning I go through some classic battles with Enclave, where I test out these new energy weapons. It ain't special, but it is not bad either. Then I went on to Monorail that suddenly stopped, and I was tasked to investigate it with my buddy Roach. Monorail of course starts as soon as we get out, so now we get into a chase sequence that ends with Roach getting killed. I don't know why, but I found it hilarious. He got squashed like a bug. We then split up into two teams, and I take Badger, Siren and Freakshow with me. Here, atmosphere changes, it is tense, and you never know what might jump at you. Or from where. It kinda reminded me of Dead Space, with husks coming out of walls and unexpected places, scaring me a few times, and then almost overwhelming me with their numbers. Soon I get ambushed by this, and it is time for a horror section. I have to find the key and get out while a monster chases me. I know that a lot of people didn't like this part, but I personally enjoyed it. It was, again, something different from your usual mod style, and it wasn't very long. Then I got thrown into another boss fight that was okay. What I liked about this horror segment were its visual effects and how it plays with its surroundings. Then we are greeted by Vas, who captures us.
You have proven to be quite a resilient specimen. That is good. With you, I could do great things.
This scene kinda looks familiar, but I can't quite put my finger on it. So I got to choose between Fergus and Wyatt, go with one I actually talked to, meet Isaac, wait what, blow a hole into wall, and now I was in outer space. With low gravity, you can jump higher, and I was supposed to jump my way back into the ship. Good idea, except that Fallout's jumping system is broken, therefore half the time you expect your character to jump, he just slides into oblivion. I was this close to cheating, but I pulled it off. Now I get to fight outside the station in low gravity with a new gun and tons of enemies, then shoot few asteroids and get back inside. This was one of my favorite sections of NCR questline. It had interesting mechanic, amazing visual effects and a fun gameplay. Inside I met Park, one of few remaining crew members. Together we found Rogue in one of the holding cells, then due to some accidents all cells open, and now I had to protect Rogue from enemies with turrets that I could switch between. Another good segment, it is unique and more importantly short, so I didn't get bored. We then find the rest of the band and move towards Argus, space station's evil AI program. Oh yeah, there is some story going on in the background, but I wasn't paying that much attention to it. You basically try to take control of Archimedes 2 that is being controlled by Argus, while Vas flexes his experiments. In next segment I get to defend my position against 6 waves of enemies. Remember how I just praised turret section for being short? Well, this is exact opposite. And what is worse, in original release it was 10 waves of same enemies, over and over again. I think 3 would have been enough. After getting through that, my team gets stuck and I get sent to open an elevator for them. On my way there, Vas decides to drop by and makes me fight the other body I didn't save during Wolfenstein's Tribute. Decent boss fight, although I prefer the speech option, that I get to fight a few waves of enemies, talk to some scientists and meet up with the crew. I know that I'm repeating myself, but this station, man, it's so beautiful. Whoever put it all together, good job. Then I talk some sense into Tuner and meet with Argus, who is not happy with me, so we settle our differences in best way possible, by trying to kill each other. This boss fight is, again, okay. First of all, its soundtrack is straight fire. Second, it has the best looking boss arena. Third, it has an interesting mechanic that, however, is not that much fun. I start by killing a few nobodies, and then Argus starts to shoot lasers. He's immune to damage, and my mission was to get these balls out of water, charge them, and shoot them back at him. One problem is that dragging and throwing are both on same button, and whenever you are moving something with vanilla grab command, it can slip off easily, and as soon as you let it go, it flies away. So I had a lot of not fun here, especially since I had to do it 4 times. Eventually I killed Argus and space station went into self-destruct. So Parker sacrificed himself by linking his consciousness to the station. Then you find out that Argus was not an AI, but brain of guy who made this whole thing, and his plan was to wipe out humanity and restart everything. Final thing to take care of is Vas, who is trying to escape in a shuffle, so I chase him down. Shuttle controls are weird and it is hard to tell where lasers shoot and if I hit enemy or not. After a long battle, Vas gets denied by a meteor and we go back to Earth. Overall, I like Chapter 3, and I think it could work as a standalone release. As soon as I come back to Earth, I'm thrown into Chapter 4. Looks like Seafinder, a weapon that controls the death ray you saw during tank battle, survived the fall and is now in hands of Legion, who don't know what it does yet. So I was sent to infiltrate Ostia and get it back. Now going from balls to the walls action at space station to sneak mission in Legion territory was quite the whiplash, and I would have preferred some quieter missions in between. Infiltration itself is fun. After arriving at Ostia, my only goal was to get to Leggett, and I could go in guns blazing or try another way. There are essentially 3 areas here, each separated by a gate, that can only be passed by certain persons. I passed first one by pretending to be Gladiator, second gate can only be passed by Legionaries, and to become one I had to fight in an arena. Once I was inside inner parts of Ostia, I decided to pop a stealth boy and go to Valerius. There are probably multiple ways, but I thought this one was easiest. I had one final conversation with him, and killed him, just like that. The main villain in an otherwise action-filled campaign was killed in his office by an invisible guy. Next up I went to dungeons, and to my surprise I found AJ here, one of the Wolfpack members. AJ is one of few well-written characters of NCR. She suffered at the hands of Valerius, becoming his slave. You two get out through a cavern, and here she breaks down, and I had to convince her to keep fighting. Later on she opens even more, and I learned about her background, feelings, and to be honest she grew on me. Plus her voice acting is great.
I understand. I'll head back to Portland, but I'm not leaving you here alone.
Well, after this quiet moment you get out of the cave and bam! Right into the car chase. We get back to base and Blackthorn tells me that Legion is basically done, and they now use guerrilla warfare to hinder NCR. He then sends me to kill Legion's second in command, Nigel Sach, who is holed up in a shopping center that has a vault, where I get drugged, and another lengthy horror sequence begins. This whole segment is just one big flex, and I think that Devilwish just had some ideas from his House of Horrors quest that he couldn't use before, and did it here. It has no consequence on storyline, no one ever mentions it again. I don't even know why would Blackthorn send his best man into an obvious trap to kill someone with minimal power. I mean, it is impressive, there are some cool scenes here, but it isn't necessary. This should have been a side quest, where Rancor tells you, hey, go here and try to take this guy out if you want, or we can move on to another part. It also rips off a lot from other games, mainly Spec Ops The Line, with the whole guilt trip. Everything is your fault. Do you see this blood that is on your hands? Blah blah blah. You even get a resist scene straight from Black Ops 2. So I get out like nothing happened and we continue on with main quest. Blackthorn now has this big speech saying that we won and that he's going to negotiate peace with NCR.
I thank you all for your loyalty and bravery you have all shown me. Semper Fi.
Doesn't Semper Fi means always faithful? That is ironic coming from a deserter. Anyway, General goes away and I went with Rancor to stop Crusaders from launching an atomic bomb. This is first time when Crusaders appear in NCR questline. To sum it up, I found Mormon Brotherhood and reached their leader, Tasha Weaver. She tells me that the Rancor is a betrayer and that I should trust her. At this time I still thought that the Rancor being traitor would be too stupid and obvious, so I went with him, killing Weaver in process. If you decide to trust her instead of Rancor, he disappears and you have to fight his robots. It doesn't really matter who you choose because the nuke will still be launched. So I watched the explosion with AJ and... you can't be serious with this. On our way back we get attacked by vertibirds, so AJ gives me control over ours, and I would have preferred if she didn't. Vertibirds are by far the worst vehicle in Frontier. They have bad controls, you have no idea where you shoot, and their segments are too long. So you find out that the Rancor is actually the betrayer and that he works for some higher ups in NCR that are trying to destroy Blackthorn. Why couldn't you make someone else betray us, other than the most obvious choice? I thought that Gray would be a lot better. He's first character you connect with. Through flashbacks you see him lose confidence in NCR and slowly in Blackthorn as well. So it would be logical if he decided to just fuck them over and join Legion. We also found out that nuke detonated in, I think, Sacramento, where General went to have a peace treaty with NCR. So I decided to go and save him, hoping that he's alive. Turns out he is the only survivor. Such luck. So we get out of bunker, get greeted by a vertibird, my weapons are confiscated in the most obvious setup known to man, and wow! Rancor reveals himself and kills Blackthorn. No one could see that one coming. Okay, let's speed it up. AJ saved me, we boarded Chimera, and Rancor is now making his big speech. Everyone from NCR you ever interacted with is here. A lot of them have their own side quests, and if you completed them, they will join you in this upcoming final battle. Now, that was pretty cool. If you don't help anyone out, you will be stuck with only AJ, fighting hordes of monsters and tanks. But if you took your time, explored the airport and helped everyone, they support you, which also comes with different perks. For example, Sergeant Reyes spawns his own tank. Here, Frontier has same problem as New California, but it just throws everything it has at you and it's just too much. Final battle doesn't mean I have to be drowning in enemies. Fallout's combat system sucks, and I want to do it as least as I can. I was forced to turn down the difficulty and I still barely made it. As I was making my way through, I had to hack some terminals with weird text and eye on screen, and I never understood what it was supposed to mean, so if anyone can explain this, feel free to let me know. We reach Rancor and he decides to blow up Liberator. Probably because he got a copyright strike from Disney. But that is still not all. Now I had to chase Rancor in a stupid vertibird, and what is even better, he decided to use an insta-kill death ray that I could barely avoid unless I was far away from him. But if I was far away, then I couldn't shoot him, because vertibird's aiming systems suck. As you can see, I wasn't happy with that. So I shot him down and he gives me his life story. Rancor is not a bad character, I can understand what he was going for with his quest, but I think he's wasted as a classic traitor, who was also so obvious that anyone with quarter of brain could find that out. Wait, you can actually beat him at Caravan. Too bad I can't play it. After killing his mecha, I get the Seafinder and can choose to destroy either NCR, Legion, both or none. Since I was fucking done with everything, I nuked them both. And that is the end of NCR questline. It took me around 13 hours to complete, which is nowhere near proclaimed 35 hours. And I don't think you can stretch it that much, since it is so on rails. It will take you at best 15 hours, and even then I'm being generous. Oh boy, what a ride. Never again. Now there is no point to criticism if I don't have solution. Chapter 3, 4 and 5 can stay the same, outside of complaints I talked about. But chapter 1 and 2 should be switched. Let me start off by doing a quick quest to prove my loyalty and skills. Then I meet Blackthorn, he shows me Liberator and asks me to find power cores for it. So we then do the Hunter's Lodge and Church, which also gives me opportunity to explore. Then we can do the bridge mission, save courier, recover bodies and have the big tank battle. That way I actually know Blackthorn before he saves me, I prove my skills by doing few quests for NCR, and I even get to check out Portland in meantime. All while not changing too much. To sum it up, NCR campaign is one big modding flex. Author wanted to show us what he can do with New Vegas without thinking if it was fun to play or if story surrounding it made sense. It goes way too fast, tries to emulate many iconic scenes and scenarios from other games without having any context or charisma that made them stand out in originals. Its story falls apart, it bends itself to author's will and doesn't make any sense. There are some shining moments here and there, great visual effects, some good looking cutscenes that are however weighted down by bad dialogue, long and boring scripted sequences, and too many useless monologues where you just follow a character and listen to them talk. I mean, this whole campaign idea could work if it was seriously reworked and rewritten, because the basic concept of exiles trying to establish a new order in a frozen land sounds good on paper, but as it is right now, it lacks any charm and I can't recommend it for everyone. If you want to see how a Call of Duty game would look like in New Vegas, or incredible scripting that I never thought was possible, then sure, you might enjoy it. But for anyone else, try Legion, or our next faction, Crusaders. These bad boys and girls can be found in the Rapco Tower. You can begin their questline straight away by deserting from NCR during your first mission, or you can also join up until you go into Space Station. Crusaders questline plays like a typical Fallout quest mod. There are no scripted sequences, no explosions or vehicles. It is a mix of dialogue, exploration and combat, with some interesting set pieces, stories and choices. So who are Crusaders? Well, I could learn that right here from Warden. But to sum it up, their before mentioned leader, Tasha Weaver, was a Brotherhood of Steel paladin who fought at Helios 1. She survived and turned her attention to Mormonism, eventually creating Crusaders. Their main goal is to clean Wasteland of all the heretics and establish order. So yeah, these guys are basically doing a holy crusade in power armors. In order to join them, Warden asked me to find a religious book, so they knew that I was serious. Of course, game pointed me to a local library, but thinking about it, what are the chances of me finding a pre-war book in a random library, and that book being intact? And also, if they do this with every recruit, then their collection must be massive. Well, my character was lucky, and I just happened to find a rare book made just for Crusaders. So I give it back, meet Clemens, and go with him to Weaver. Here I also meet the rest of major characters, Molly and Charlene. I give them the book, and Weaver accepts me into Crusaders. Now the four main characters I mentioned are the main quest givers. This whole storyline basically boils down to you helping them out, and when you complete enough quests, you go into final battle, and that's it. To be honest, there isn't any big overarching story or twists or anything remotely interesting told here. Now the quests themselves are fun, there is a good variety in them. For example, in one quest you are supposed to rescue Crusaders from NCR prison without killing any NCR members. Then they also get to hunt down a blood cult, stop restaurant bombing, or deal with crazy ghoul who heals people in exchange for their other body parts or members of family. In one quest you have to get Crusaders a food supply and meet the greatest guy who walked the frontier, Sir Wendell.
I got the whole inventory in my head. I can also do math real fast. Watch. What's in the middle of pi? No. Filling, you dumbass. Man, you're sharp as melted butter. No worries, my friend. You have Sir Wendell to figure out the smart stuff for you.
A lot of interesting stuff, that just isn't about shooting or talking. There are also a few scripted sequences here, but thankfully they are tasteful, not too long or out of place. I also like how there are usually multiple solutions and endings to each quest. Characters are also well written. I liked Molly, she had some good lines and I liked her voice actor. Others like Charlene, Clemens or Weaver are also nice. They each have different backstories and problems. It is best to do Crusaders while you are exploring the wasteland, since its quests take you all around it, and it's best way to see everything it has to offer. Few things I didn't like is how there are a lot of sequences where you have to follow certain characters, and that basically everything works out in the end. Like I said, there is no twist, no big obstacle, you just complete a mission after mission, and that's it. I mean, there was no need to make a crazy plot like with NCR, but a few things not working out would be great. One good comparison between NCR and Crusaders that can show the difference between these two factions is the nuclear silo mission. In NCR campaign it is full of enemies, explosions, scripted sequences and cutscenes, where you can also pick between NCR and Crusaders, and there are multiple ways on how some characters end up. In Crusaders you go in, kill a few robots, launch the nuke at the Enclave, and that's it. Nothing big happens, no ambush or special enemies. It turns Silo into a classic dungeon. And that is not bad. Some people might prefer first version, some might like second one. Like I said, there isn't much going on plot-wise either. You basically complete a lot of random quests, and then you can forge an alliance with NCR, kill Leged and Rancor, and boom, it's over, with a happy ending. At the end I was a bit unsatisfied, it could use a few more big story quests, but other than that it is okay. Like I said, the classic New Vegas quest mod. One last thing to talk about is America. I met her right after being accepted into Order, and she then joined me as a companion. Honestly, outside of all the controversial stuff, I think that she is a good companion. She has an interesting story, and I liked her personality. She really reminded me of Willow. I liked how she comments on companions you meet, locations you discover, and even has a lot to say during Crusaders questline. So overall, these guys were a welcome change of pace after the NCR shitstorm, and I would really recommend them to anyone who is looking for a classic quest mod experience. It will take you around 7 hours to complete with a lot of simple quests, okay dialogue and some interesting characters, variety in missions, and good mix of combat and exploration. Alright, so let's move on to Legion. In order to begin their quest, you need to have good reputation with them. If you have a Legion based character, great. If you don't, you can use Quick Start option that gives you the reputation necessary to begin. However, at the beginning you still have to go through at least first NCR mission, right up to the point when you get captured, where it is possible to tell Legate that you are one of them. Oh god, not again. So it takes at least 1 hour before Legion's questline truly begins. I wish there was a way to start it right away. So I tell Legate what's what, and he told me that I need to be punished for killing his soldiers, so he takes me to Ostia's prison. Here, his right-hand man, Kalidas, gives me a series of tasks that prove that I am a true legionnaire. I don't think I was supposed to pick this halberd and kill them. Final task is to kill both of my fellow prisoners, and I liked how there was a speech option that still led to both of them dying. Usually speech checks are an easy win, so I'm glad it didn't work out this time. Now that I have proven myself, Legate gives me my first mission, destroy Outpost Henderson. But before I do, it is time to explore Ostia and meet its inhabitants. Just like with Crusaders, there are a bunch of characters here, each one with a lot of dialogue, where they talk about Ostia, Legate, themselves, and I could even get some side quests. Ostia is located in the northern part of map, so it is a long road to inhabited parts of Portland and to my mission objectives. But I was already done with Wasteland by now, so it was time to use console commands and speed it up a bit. You can also get a mount that helps you with traversal, but I left mine near the gate, so I kinda forgot about it. Anyway, I started off by doing side quests first and then moved on to main storyline. Side quests are okay, just like whole quest line, they are dialogue heavy, it is possible to solve most of them by talking, and there aren't many combat encounters. One exception I really liked is one where I could destroy the NCR radio. That was a lot of fun. This guy doesn't seem to mind. Another funny one was the supermarket adventure. They also take you around the whole frontier, so if you don't like Crusaders, you can explore with Legion as well. There aren't that many side quests, or at least I didn't find many, so let's return back to main quest line. Dealing with outposts proved to be easy. I fully immersed myself into being a Legion douchebag, so I had no problem killing my former teammates. And I was done with NCR anyway. Next, Valerius sent me to meet with Rancor, who, if you forgot, is the Legion spy. He wants me to meet with Mayor of Junkfleet, a mysterious character whose identity is unknown, and it is up to me to get his attention. I thought that there would be no map markers and that I had to think about how to establish contact. But no, you can just steal a bunch of bottles or talk to the captain and find out that she is the mayor. Okay, that was a lot easier than I thought. I convinced her to become my ally, and my next task was to deal with both Crusaders and Church of Eternal Life. Church's quest is similar to how it played out in NCR quest with some minor additions. But what I want to talk about is the Crusaders. Again, you start by getting access to their tower, and then Weaver tells you that she would never make an alliance with Legion. Let's do something with that. You can try to take advantage of rift between Molly and Charlene and try and destabilize leadership. I went and learned that Clemens used to be a Medex addict, so I spiked his drink with some and blackmailed him into escalating Molly's and Charlene's conflict. We do that by using Charlene's ability. She can pop someone's head by being in contact with electricity. We have them meet, yell at each other, Clemens then zaps Charlene, she explodes Molly's head, runs away, and I guilt Weaver into stepping down, installing Broken Clemens as the leader of Crusaders, while I do whatever I want with them. God, that was evil, and I loved it. This is how you do a bad character, and I absolutely loved taking this path and destroying Crusaders from within. By the way, America saw it all happen. So how did you like your big sister's head exploding right in front of you? Now that Crusaders are under my control, Rancor informs me that Enclave Station exploded, and that Vas, along with Seafinder, escaped to Vault 6. We go there and find a city full of robots. They were all created by Vas, and my mission was to find him. Each robot has a distinct personality and agenda, some even have their own side quests, and by talking to each one, I found out that I need to get the code from Trapper Johnson, who went deeper into the vault. So I go in, learn Vas's backstory, and he actually becomes a character now, instead of cliché evil scientist. I found out why he did what he did, what is up with his accent, and a lot more. I basically learned more about him during Legion questline than I did throughout the whole NCR campaign. And same applies to Wolfpack as well, you learn more about them from Legion than by talking to them. Writing is definitely miles ahead when compared to NCR. And that doesn't apply just to backstories. Conversations are funny, I could pick from tons of options each time, and I wanted to learn more about everyone I met. Maybe next time Nazo could team up with Devil's Wish and create an ultimate mod that is well written and scripted. So I go deeper into City, and we have a horror sequence. After some intense PTSD, I go through it and surprisingly it's actually pretty good. It mainly consists of creepy sound effects, visual storytelling, and there isn't much scripting here. To speed things up, I found Johnson, get the codes, talk to a floating head that tells me to join it and kill Vas, but I refuse because he sounds like a psychopath. I then find Vas, who is now a robot, kill him, destroy Seafinder, and we're out. This whole vault experience was great. I had a lot of fun talking to robots, learning about them and Vas, and thanks to a variety of sequences, I was entertained the whole way through. Next up, it was time to kill the wolf pack. We do that by going to Lloyd's center, and once again, there are multiple ways on how to do it. I can persuade Johnson to arrest Hotshot, enslave AJ, who turns out is a sister of Calidus, and kill Mouse. Unfortunately, my disguise didn't work, so instead of being friendly, every NCR trooper attacked me in the first part of Mall, but they didn't in second part, so I guess that was a bug. Eventually I met Nigel Sach and I can either free him or kill him. Since I still remember how he put me through the dream sequence, I go for the kill. With Wolfpack dead, it was time for final assault, but before that Harcase attacks Ostia to get revenge. But he is easily seduced by me and then he is crucified for being horny. Legate makes his big speech, and if I want I can talk to Legion as well. If you gathered evidence of Legate's wrongdoings throughout the story by talking to people, making alliances that original Legion wouldn't make, and completing side quests, you can use that to try and persuade legionnaires to overthrow Valerius, which I thought was pretty cool. Also, if you want, you can side with Rancor, who tells you his plan and how he is a triple agent and all that stuff. Unfortunately, I was done with Frontier by this point, so I didn't side with Rancor nor spoke against Valerius, but I appreciate the option. So here comes final battle. I thought it was cool that I could talk with all factions I recruited before we went and attacked Camp Phoenix. You can find them in battle as well. Also, AJ is here as a slave. Well, this is awkward. Final Assault is good. It has that bombastic action you expect from a decisive battle, but it doesn't go overboard with effects or enemies. Finally, I reached Blackthorn, told him to kill himself, and we are done. So, Legion's questline is by far the best one in Frontier. It offers great and funny dialogue, well-written characters, a lot of choices in quests that make impact in the future, and scripted sequences are only used when necessary. It should take you around 7 or 8 hours to finish. My only small problems were that there could be a few more side quests and more combat encounters, but other than that, it is great. When it comes to side content, I will be brief, since this video is already way longer than I expected it to be. There are some great quests in the land of Portland, and my favorite ones that you should check out are in KS Enterprises, Sanctuary, Bounty Office in Junkfleet, the Frost Lion Resort, and Swordstone Tower. Network and Salt Town are cool as well, and I don't think there was even one quest that I found boring. When it comes to companions, there are 9, and I hanged out with each one except Hanged Man, since I couldn't find him. My favorite one was Scraps, robot exclusive to Legion, who has best lines by far. I also liked America, Donovan, AJ and Skitters, in that order. Branch and Jolin were I killed Lat, and LARP is a cool concept, but he doesn't do anything special, so I didn't care about him. Almost all of them also have a companion quest. Donovan's and Lat's are especially good. Alright, so if I'm going to talk about just one side quest, let's go with Lat's. I found him near a well, sitting beside a destroyed caravan, trying to piece together what happened to it. He was acting like a weirdo, but I didn't stop and think about that, and helped him with the investigation. Turns out someone killed everyone here and took Lat's sister as hostage. So you go from place to place, talk to people, and eventually find out where his sister is. During this time, I saw that Lod was nice to many of the characters, usually persuading me not to kill them or be mean to them, so I thought he was one of the good guys. We reach Mountain, where his sister is, and to my surprise, she was kidnapped by a bunch of ex-slaves that escaped and wanted to get their revenge on Lod, because it turns out that he's a slaver. At first I thought that they were lying, but Lot admits it himself and doesn't find it weird and just tries to make it seem normal. Well, I'm against slavery, so I let them kill him. Then I found his sister dead upstairs, so I killed slaves as well. Now this was a surprising side quest. I thought Lot was a good man and I was glad to help him, but in the end it turns out I was deceived by a slaver. And there are a lot of good stories like this one here, so make sure you explore and try to find as many as you can. From all I talked about, Frontier seems like a good mod, with one bad part that can be easily ignored, but unfortunately that isn't the case. There is some questionable content and developers involved here, and I need to talk about it as well. Most of you are probably aware about all the stuff that happened, and if you don't, I would suggest watching Grimm's Fall of Frontier video. Here I just want to give my thoughts on all of that. Let's start with things that are in game. Most of them are removed now, but it doesn't mean I can forget them. First of all, the fucking snake people. Oh my god. I hate them so much. They're ugly, have horrible dialogue, and are horny for no reason. For the purpose of this video I did their quest, and I hated every second of it. Why would you put a bad mix of Argonians and Khajiits into Fallout? And why would you let me fuck them? There is even a character there that talks about how hot their queen is. And what is worse is that they are not in any secluded part of the map whatsoever. They are part of a pretty big Salt Town quest, and you have to go through them if you want to finish it. Please remove them and never return them, even in an optional plugin. Next big thing was America. Her smelly feline didn't bother me much, because first of all I didn't think about it as a fetish, because I don't have any sexual thoughts related to feet. So if you noticed this and thought it was meant as a sexual fetish thing, you have a problem as well. Slavery lines though, yeah, those weren't good. My main problem here is that America was clearly written as a teenager, and that one note saying she's 18 is not gonna convince me, especially if first thing you call her when you meet her is kid. Giving me an option to enslave her and call her my little slave girl is pretty fucked up. And I don't have problems with slavery or kids slavery either. I mean, in Fallout 3 you can enslave kids from Little Lamplight, so it is nothing new. My problem lies with the sexual undertones addressed to a clearly underage girl. Same thing also happens with May, another teenager in Irvington. She jokingly asks you to take her virginity, talks about how she will have tons of sex and about drawing porn, and Jesus, you can even try to buy some from her. Apparently she was supposed to be a parody of Tumblr blogger, but that could have been done in a tasteful way, without sexualization. Another disturbing thing is that there is a note on a dead guy near Irvington that says he likes May and wants to seduce her. I know that Wasteland is a bad place and that child rape happens, but there is no need to put it out on a table like that, or you can do it on a character that doesn't talk about sex 24/7. What I find surprising is that Lizard People and May were both written by same guy who did Legion questline. I really don't understand this, like how can you make the best story of Frontier and at the same time write shit like that? Next up is Dead Close Sex. Okay, this one is not as bad as people make it out to be. I mean, you can get fucked by a robot in New Vegas and instead of being outraged, people act like it's a brilliant writing. If you say that you don't mind getting fucked by a robot, then you shouldn't be bothered by fucking a Deathclaw either. I don't like both options and anyone who wants any of that should be in jail. What has my life come to? I'm comparing which one is better, to fuck a robot or fictional animal. I should just go back to last place. There are also some other weird sexual things here, like condom on a truck. A lot of dialogue is centered on your character trying to get some action, and it usually sounds very cringy, and what is even more surprising, it is successful. I have a feeling that anyone who wrote that hasn't talked to a girl for a long time. You can also meet Solid Snake and talk about his penis. Writers should have just rubbed one out before writing anything. The thing is, Fallout handles dark themes as well, but it does it in the way that kinda fits in and is like bearable most of the time. They aren't overly sexualized like they were here or overused. Another thing people complained about is that developers took assets from Stalker, but these are free to use, so that is irrelevant. Okay, time to talk about the pedophile. I of course don't approve of what he did, and everything he did I hope was reported to police. And I know, I just hope they take care of it. I don't want to delve on that too much. One thing I will say to defend other developers though is that most of them probably weren't part of core team and didn't even know he was working with them. And also he was part of team for 3 years instead of 7. Also I don't think anyone even thought about going through his old portfolio. I mean, would you do a background check on every single member of your team before you let him join in, especially if it's a project you do in your free time for no cost? I don't think they would let him work with them if they knew. I mean, letting a pedophile work with the project on you is instant internet suicide, and I don't think anyone would do that willingly. However, that doesn't excuse any of the other weird stuff I talked about, and developers should take responsibility for it. Also, the way Frontier uses Wild Wasteland is a joke. You don't have to cram so many stupid references, sexual dialogue options, other weird conversation choices in, and then hide them behind Wild Wasteland. Finally, lore. Okay, I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate here, but honestly, I don't care that much. Fallout's lore is one of the most convoluted and retconned thing of all time. Every single new installment changes things that were previously established and bends the rules to its own will. Even New Vegas did. I think that even Star Wars has more consistent lore than Fallout. But there are some things that didn't make sense, I admit that. Like NCR Exiles suddenly having an army larger than NCR in original game that they could use to overtake them in no time. I don't like Enclave, mainly because they're always villains, so I never had any reason to like them, but there was no need to shit on them this hard. Their space story doesn't make any sense, and saying they are a fascist organization, it wasn't necessary. Also, I saw some people complaining how Legion isn't acting as they were in vanilla game, but that can be explained by Valerius trying to change Legion's ways. But other than that, I really don't understand any other lore complaints. I mean, technically any mod you install is not lore friendly, because those characters, locations or even gameplay features were not in original game. so they can't be lore friendly, unless someone mentioned them before. I'm not gonna talk about 4chan. So in the end, Frontier is not the greatest mod for Fallout New Vegas like we hoped it would be, but it is also not the worst thing in existence like people are making it out to be. It has its problems, mainly with controversies and NCR storyline, but other than that, it hides a brilliant world with tons of genuinely good content, new weapons, armors and other assets created just for it, along with one OK and one great main quest. So with that said, my rankings are 10 out of 10 for its world, side quests, weapons and armors, 9 out of 10 for Legion, 7 out of 10 for Crusaders, 5 out of 10 for NCR and 0 out of 10 for controversies. That rounds it up to a nice 7 out of 10. However, since I didn't see any mention of me in here, while other YouTubers had their parts, I will unfortunately have to lower it to a 6. Hopefully developers can recover from all this backlash, and I wish them good luck. And that's it. I'm done with Frontier. Yeah guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video. This one was probably the longest video I ever made so far, and my throat is parched. I need to take a break, and I'm not gonna talk into microphone for some time. This video is a lot longer than I originally wanted it to be. You know, my plan was to make like, I don't know, 15-minute video praising Frontier, but that was before it came out and all, you know, all the stuff I talked about came out. So yeah, and I had a lot of things to say. So that's why it is also so late. And to be honest, it's not really that late. I worked on this for like 3 weeks straight, with only very minor breaks in between, and I'm glad I finally managed to finish it. So now I will take a bit of a break, and you can expect the ARC video and the Fallout anniversary video, you know, a bit later. Outside of that, I've been doing fine, so I hope you're doing fine as well. And this is already way too long, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, tell me what you think about it in the comments, subscribe for more Fallout and other games content, and I will see you next time.